there's a stretch of
You
ocean
hear that they
between
found an
Florida,
underwater
Bermuda.
UFO base in the Bermuda
Me and
Triangle?
Jordan
For decades,
riding
we've all been
straight into
wondering
the
what
Bermuda
really happens
Triangle.
Rumors about the
People
fact that this
blame
could be
things
where
like
Atlantis
waves,
was.
So the glitch actually begins when the Loch Ness Monster portal opens and they descend into that body of water, dragging all the boats and all the planes down.
I think while growing up, kids are weirdly scared of like 1 in a million chance things happening to them. Like quicksand, I was really scared of anacondas and also the Bermuda Triangle. I wonder if it was just like the time I was raised, but conspiracy theories were all the rage. I was a big fan of Shane Dawson, which yikes, but also I was like 12, so anyways, I was a big fan of conspiracy theories just in general, and his conspiracy theory videos were always like some of my favorite, and I would watch them and just kind of take them at face value. Like, oh, this YouTuber I like said something, so obviously that means it's true, no need to do other research, even if that YouTuber is not actually credible. So a lot of them for a while I just like kind of assumed were true. Anyways, he would mention the Bermuda Triangle a lot, and I found it super scary because at this time my family and I were going on cruises like every year, and we would usually leave out of Florida, and I was just patiently waiting for the pilot to randomly take a wrong turn and us to accidentally go into a time travel vortex, or for our cruise captain to just accidentally steer us into like a giant sea creature's mouth. But obviously that never happened, and I was just kind of curious, like, do ships even actually still go missing in the Bermuda Triangle? The answer, not more than any other highly trafficked place on Earth, and also it's a really shitty conspiracy. Anyways, I wanted to talk about it, so I'm pretty sure everybody knows what the Bermuda Triangle is, but maybe you don't know like where it is or like stats or anything like that, so let me give you a rundown. The Bermuda Triangle is a section of the Atlantic Ocean that spans from the eastern coast of Florida to Puerto Rico in the south and then Bermuda in the east. Let me point out though, exact dimensions of this have never actually been agreed upon, and guesses range anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million kilometers, which is a crazy difference. So let's start off with, if you don't even know how big it is, how are you measuring it? Anyways, let's move on. I can't stress enough that the Bermuda Triangle is not like an actual tangible thing. Like, there's no landmarks. It's not put on maps. It's literally just like a social term that was coined in the 60s by some random author. The term Bermuda Triangle was first used in 1964 by author Vincent Gaddis. He made the connection that a lot of boats and planes went missing in that area, so there had to be something spooky going on. But guys, the entire conspiracy relies on the fact that over the past 200 years, only 20 planes and 50 ships have gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle. That's it. It's said to have claimed 1,000 lives, but I feel like even like Drake's Passage definitely had to have more, right? 800 ships have sunk in the Drake Passage and 20,000 soldiers have died trying to pass through it. I think I might have just disproved this theory in the intro, okay? Like, anyways, the concept and subsequent conspiracy theories about the Bermuda Triangle have only been around in the last like 60 years, which is not what I expected. I kind of thought this would be one of those like really old mythology things, but no. It was kind of hard to find actual like concrete evidence of what came first because of how sensationalized all of this is, but every source that I'm seeing is saying that on his 1492 cross-Atlantic trip, Christopher Columbus was the first person to document odd phenomena in the area while he was sailing to the New World. He said that his compasses were acting strangely and also that he saw a great flame of fire, and I'll explain the modern day explanations for those like later. But I was reading for like an hour and I could not find anywhere where he actually said this, and every source is just saying he wrote it in a diary, but I could find no diary, so this could be completely made up. I don't know. I feel like the Bermuda Triangle was such a big thing when I was growing up, and I was on Reddit and I saw people talking about how when they were growing up in the 70s that it was also a big thing, and I kind of just assumed, oh, it's been in movies and it's like really culturally relevant, so it's probably got an old past. And I was trying to find examples in between Christopher Columbus and this next one I'm going to talk about, but there just aren't any. There's just like no stories of ships disappearing older than 200 years. The first ship that ever went missing in the Bermuda Triangle was in 1800, 308 years after Christopher Columbus. The USS Pickering was the first brig built for the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service and then was used in the Navy years later. On orders, it left from Newcastle, Delaware on August 20th, heading for the West Indies. Between 70 and 100 people went missing, and it's thought the ship disappeared because of a storm. And in that same storm, the USS Insurgent, along with its 340 passengers, also vanished without a trace. This one doesn't even really sound like a mystery to me. I feel like they definitely sank. Anyways, storms are super common in these stories. One of the most popular sunken ship stories in the Bermuda Triangle is the USS Cyclops. It was a Navy ship that was used during World War I. It left Barbados on March 4th, headed for Baltimore, Maryland, and while sailing, it lost contact, and all 306 crew and passengers went missing. Since this was during World War I, people immediately assumed it was the Germans, and they assumed that because the ship was carrying 10,000 tons of manganese ore, which was used to produce munitions at the time. I also saw World War I and immediately thought that, but German authorities at the time denied any knowledge of the vessel, and most of the ships that got attacked by Germany during World War I were over in Europe. Fun fact, this ship's disappearance is considered one of the largest non-combat losses of any ship operated in the U.S. Navy, second only to the USS Insurgent in 1800, the other ship I just mentioned. Which I guess, yeah, that's kind of interesting. The Naval History and Heritage Command has claimed it probably sank in an unexpected storm. Okay, let's quickly talk about a few more ships and then we can move on to planes. October 1814, USS Wasp disappeared, 173 men lost, believed to have been lost due to a hurricane near Bermuda. October 1824, USS Wildcat lost with 31 people on board, again thought to have sunk due to a storm. January 1921, Carol A. Deering washed ashore with none of its crew or lifeboats. People think it was either evacuated or the crew were taken by pirates. Which, this story is interesting, but also, this is like relatively common. In November 1925, the SS Cotopaxi disappeared with 32 people on board, though they literally sent out a distress signal saying that they were in a tropical storm, so I don't know how this is a mystery. Anyways, in 1977, Steven Spielberg put this ship in a movie called Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the characters find it in the middle of the Gobi Desert. Kinda odd, but the 70s is when people started talking about this, so I mean, people started thinking about it at least. Okay, let's talk planes now. One of the most popular plane disappearances here, especially within like the conspiracy theory world, is Flight 19. I'm not gonna lie, this one seems a little crazy at first, but like it's very explainable. Flight 19 wasn't just one or two planes, it was 5. This story was also one of the first examples of when people started talking about this mystery and the catalyst for people to like actually start looking into it. On December 5th, 1925, a group of 14 men were flying US bombers, completing a training exercise leaving from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and everything was fine, but a couple hours into the flight, one of the trainees said, "I don't know where we are, we must have gone lost after the last turn." His lieutenant responded, "Both my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale." They were able to triangulate the planes, placing them north of the Bahamas and much more east of Florida than they thought they were. The lieutenant in charge stated, "We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together." And the planes then lost contact and they were never seen again. The general theory is that Lieutenant Taylor mistook his location for near the Florida Keys and in the Gulf of Mexico. Eventually, they would have ran out of fuel and they would have had to down their planes. Explosions are also a big theory attributed to this because those particular models of plane were prone to them. The Spielberg movie I just mentioned also included Flight 19 as part of the plot, blaming aliens though. This is one of the biggest examples, but like, I feel like it shouldn't be, right? I mean, over the radio, they literally said they didn't know where they were and that they were almost out of fuel and that they were about to crash. How is this a mystery? I mean, these were trainees who were following what their lieutenant said to do, and if he was lost, then they all were. One of the crazy things about this story, though, is that people knew that they would have been out of fuel soon, so there were people who went looking for them, and one of the planes also disappeared. Quote, "The plane called in a routine message a few minutes later, but disappeared off the radar entirely within about 20 minutes of takeoff. That night, a merchant ship off the coast of Fort Lauderdale reported seeing a burst of flame shortly before passing through an oil slick in the same vicinity the BPM had dropped off the radar." So it's probably safe to assume that the plane also got lost along with the other 14 men who were trying to save the other people. In January 1948, there was a passenger plane called the Star Tiger that was flying from Lisbon, Portugal to Bermuda. The flight was already pushed back 75 minutes because there was work that needed to be done on the engine, but soon they took off headed for their destination and they stopped to refuel in a city called Santa Maria in the Azores. The weather was reportedly so bad that they decided to wait till the following day to leave, They took off again, and the rain and wind was whipping the side of the aircraft. This time, a smaller plane had to leave an hour ahead of them, and it was like reporting weather updates back to the passenger plane. The pilot was flying low, trying to avoid high winds, but about 10 hours into the flight, the plane in front realized that the Star Tiger had blown off course by about 60 miles, which is a lot considering they were trying to go straight. The passenger plane was headed for Newfoundland, and it was reaching the point of no return, meaning that they can't turn around because they're going to run out of fuel. The smaller plane was trying to give the Star Tiger a new route, but it led them directly into a different storm. A ship reported seeing low-flying aircraft with flashing lights about halfway between Bermuda and the entrance to the Delaware Bay, which means if this is the plane, it had gone well off course from Bermuda. There was no distress signal ever sent out, but the plane would lose contact and disappear, and even after a 5-day search, the plane and its 31 passengers were never found. I've given like a lot more detail on the planes just because they're more recent in history, so we have like actual proof of it. I just find them more interesting, but I'm going to try and like speed through these next few. In December 1948, the Douglas DC-3 airliner carrying 32 people left San Juan, Puerto Rico, leaving for Miami, Florida. The captain learned that the landing gear warning light wasn't working and that the plane's batteries were out of water and dead. Because the batteries weren't charged, the radio worked one way and the aircraft wasn't able to respond. They flew around the station recharging their batteries for 11 minutes, but this turned out to not really do much because they weren't actually able to respond to any of the texts. The plane decided to fly anyways. The plane never made it to its destination. 2 bodies were later found, but they were never connected to the wreck. Skipping forward in time to June 5th, 1965, a U.S. Air Force flying boxcar left Grand Turk Island and disappeared over the Bahamas with 10 people aboard. In December of the same year, a passenger plane called ERCO Eurocoup left Fort Lauderdale headed for the Bahamas, and the plane was lost with the pilot and its 1 passenger. Okay, I've given some examples of disappearances within the Bermuda Triangle so that you guys get like a baseline, right? Objectively, I feel like this place does not seem that interesting, right? I mean, planes and ships go missing because of storms and Operation Air all around the world, so why is this place, like, specifically sticking out so much? Conspiracy theories on the Bermuda Triangle have ranged from Atlantis to sea monsters to aliens and probably Netanyahu. And I've tried to not really talk about these because, well, they're insane. But conspiracy theories are obviously gonna, like, play a major role in community speculation. So here is a compilation of the...
You know, I find it really interesting that all these rockets seem to take the exact same path. Almost all of NASA's launches are in Florida, and they go right out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Did you hear that they found an underwater UFO base in the Bermuda Triangle?
And the fact that eels go there, and we don't know how eels reproduce.
Almost 3 times bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, there is a gigantic crystal pyramid under the surface of that region.
An anomaly-heavy region on Earth where a disproportionate number of strange phenomena occur, such as disappearances, UFO sightings, underwater people, and other strange sightings.
Began to hear an unusual loud noise that began to emanate. One of the crew members turned on his GoPro to record this unusual sound, but that's when they saw it. It was half fish, half man swimming over them. A siren. The group were horrified with what they discovered
in the Bermuda Triangle.
They are like electrical, they have electrical current.
Right. In fact, when eels go to procreate and mate, they go into the Bermuda Triangle deep underwaters where they cannot be found.
Said that researchers believe that this pyramid was built by an ancient, super advanced civilization known as the Atlanteans.
Noticed a mysterious underground structure rising from the seabed. They soon realized it was a pyramid, 300 meters wide and 200 meters tall.
There were a number of civilizations who have self-destructed on this planet over the last 500 million years or more, the last of which was
Atlantis.
The Atlanteans had mastered interdimensional travel and built this pyramid as one of Earth's gateways to another realm.
Found a pyramid on the seafloor there, or it could be the Bermuda Triangle.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source? My source is that I made it the fuck up.
One of the biggest proofs for Christopher Columbus's story was that his compasses were acting funny. I guess I never really understood how compasses work because I just like never Googled it. But I'm going to try and give the easy to understand version of all of this. Because of the Earth's core, the Earth's magnetic field has two poles, north and south. The poles are slightly off from our axis of rotation, but they're close enough that as long as you make adjustments for the difference, it makes compasses a valuable navigation tool. This is called declination. This formula works good except for on agonic lines. Agonic lines are imaginary lines that connect the magnetic north and south pole, causing areas of no magnetic declination. Along these lines, a compass's needle will point directly to true geographic north. This is because magnetic north and true north are perfectly aligned. There's no need to account for magnetic declination on these lines because they're already lined up. These lines gradually shift over time because of Earth's changing magnetic field, and they sometimes pass through the Bermuda Triangle. So people who are unfamiliar with this and are sailing the world 534 years ago like Christopher Columbus might think something spooky's going on. I also think it's important to mention that there was a period in the early 20th century where the line ran through the Bermuda Triangle, which may explain many of the disappearances because people were likely unaware of that and they were just getting lost and confused. Another thing Christopher Columbus claimed he saw was that he saw a giant flame of fire, which this could be a bunch of things scientists say. It could be a meteor falling from the sky, which can look really strange over open sea. It could have been ball lightning, which is when lightning hovers over an area in a big cluster. And also, lightning over the ocean isn't exactly rare. There's also potentially pockets of methane gas, and when the bubbles come to the surface, it can cause static electricity. And then if lightning strikes, it would also ignite and then look crazy. One of the most common themes throughout all of these stories is that the weather was poor. So let's talk about how poor the weather actually is in the Bermuda Triangle. I'm quoting here, "The area experiences violent and unexpected storms and weather changes. These short but intense storms can build up quickly, dissipate rapidly, and go undetected by satellite surveillance. Waterspouts, which are tornadoes occurring at sea that pull ocean water up from its surface, have been observed in the area. Scientists have also spotted rogue waves up to 100 feet high in the area." Bro, how is this still a mystery? We weren't even able to predict storms up until the 1800s, and we weren't able to accurately predict when a hurricane would happen until 60 to 80 years ago. The fact is, people were just sailing into storms that they had no idea were happening. The Gulf Stream also runs directly through the Bermuda Triangle, passing through the Florida Strait. This could explain disappearances here. This is an extremely strong ocean current that causes sharp changes in local weather and makes up the majority of the area in the Bermuda Triangle. The current travels out into the Atlantic Ocean, ending in Europe, so good luck if you get lost in there, and also good luck to the people who are trying to find the wreckage of the boats. Remember the methane gas pockets I mentioned earlier? They can also cause density issues on the surface, pulling ships under without them being able to even do anything about it. After Florida, let's move on to Puerto Rico now. The deepest point in the Atlantic Ocean is located between two tectonic plates and is located directly underneath of Puerto Rico. It sits on top of a 28,000 foot deep trench called the Puerto Rico Trench. The deepest part is the Milwaukee Depth, and it was only discovered using sonar in 2018, so no surprise that no ships have been found here. Okay, let's move over to Bermuda because that's what the triangle is named after, and so it's gotta be super dangerous, right? Coral reefs. It's also the most northern coral reef in the Atlantic, but according to the Bermuda website, reefs in shallow waters were treacherous for ship navigation before modern technology. Bermuda's 300 plus shipwrecks are largely attributed to run-ins with the island's extensive reef system. Which makes sense. I mean, big ships are unaware of reefs. They could possibly shipwreck. I mean, they could also potentially go missing? I don't know. One of the biggest parts of this mystery is that the wreckage is typically never found. But, like, guys, do you realize how big the fucking ocean is? Obviously, the people who don't have access to modern day locating technology aren't going to be able to find wreckage. Do you really think that the people who were sailing on this have the same success of finding things as people who are using this? Like, let's be serious, guys. Also, the Gulf Stream very likely pushes most of these wrecks out into the Atlantic Ocean, and then people, they're looking in the wrong place and they don't even know where to begin. The mystery of the wreckage never being found also isn't even always true. In fact, many wrecks have been found decades later and then were just never reported, which can can make numbers less accurate, back then it was also pretty hard for them to recover sunken wreckage, especially somewhere so treacherous like the Gulf Stream. One of the most popular examples, remember I mentioned earlier the ship the USS Cotopaxi that went missing and was found in the Gobi Desert in the Steven Spielberg film? Yeah, well, it was actually found 95 years later in 2020. They discovered it had definitely hit a tropical storm and the latches to the different sections of the ship were faulty and they were unable to keep water out. It probably escalated quickly and sunk just as fast. The actual number of wrecks that have been recovered is kind of hard to determine. Because these wrecks are so old, they're hard to identify and pinpoint to certain disappearances. But I mean, these ships have to belong to somebody, so people just kind of assume. Either way, the wreckage is never found claim is kind of a loose sentence. There's also the common but hard to accept theory that this is all probably made much worse by human error. Who's driving this bus? No matter how good of a captain somebody says they are, being in unfamiliar territory with faulty compasses, running low on fuel, and having many other people's lives depending directly on your ability to stay calm can definitely make people freak out. It really isn't totally out of the realm of possibility that these people just made mistakes while navigating, got lost, went missing, and then ended up in a big conspiracy involving aliens. I spent most of this video showing and talking about older examples, but to really just like nail in how stupid this conspiracy theory is, I want to show y'all something. Here are how many ships are currently traveling in or around the Bermuda Triangle right now, and this is the number of planes. So yeah, clearly it isn't actually that dangerous. But why? I mean, ships used to go missing, so why not anymore? I feel like I've said this a lot in the video, but modern day equipment. Things like GPS make it much harder to actually get lost, and it also gives us a better idea of where to look for wreckage. GPSs weren't invented until 1973 though, and weren't put into most boats until the 1980s. Isn't that crazy? Reading from the website Do Planes Avoid the Bermuda Triangle, it states, the airspace over the Bermuda Triangle is traversed daily by hundreds of aircraft, from commercial airlines to private jets and cargo planes. Major carriers have flown these routes for decades without incident. There are no official advisories, no restrictions, and certainly no requirement to avoid the area. The sheer amount of people that travel through this area means that, unfortunately, things are just gonna happen, and it really isn't a mystery. It's just collateral damage, and something that unfortunately happens when people travel over open ocean. The concept of lost at sea isn't really a thing anymore, especially for like military and public transportation like passenger planes and cruise ships. GPSs, radar, satellite communication, and accurate weather prediction make a huge difference, and they leave little room for mysterious disappearances anymore. The company Leidos is also working on a technology called the Assured Data Engine for Positioning and Timing, which can provide any craft that operates above or below surface with near GPS precision data. Even if GPS is denied for days or weeks at sea, you can still stay on mission. This is obviously revolutionary and can definitely help if other GPSs fail. Millions of people travel through the Bermuda Triangle every single year, and they're able to do this thanks to the people who lost their lives trying to traverse it before them. It's kind of sad, but considering the amount of people that travel through there, it's honestly kind of shocking that the number isn't much higher, right? I mean, considering everything I just said, the number should be like way higher, right? And even with modern equipment, but like especially back then, 100-foot waves, hurricanes appearing out of nowhere, and one of your only navigational tools, a compass, suddenly it just stops working. I genuinely can't believe that this conspiracy theory only relies on 20 planes and 50 ships. Like, are we serious? So in the end, boats and planes just don't go missing in the Bermuda Triangle anymore like they used to, and definitely not more than any other highly trafficked place around the world. And the Bermuda Triangle isn't really a conspiracy theory, it's just like a testament to how far modern navigational equipment has came. It's also just one of those unfortunate things that happens when people were traveling without scientific and modern knowledge. These people were just kind of guessing, and it's not really any of the pilots or captain's fault. They just didn't know what we know now. That being said, now that we actually know what's going on in the Bermuda Triangle, it's kind of insane to still perpetuate it like it's some crazy, mysterious disappearance case when it's just not. It's just natural, like, this is just weather. This is just what happened. You're in the middle of the goddamn ocean. What do you expect? There's so many more interesting places in the ocean that we've just never been to, and I don't understand why people don't just make, like, Atlantis theories over there. Why are they doing it in the Bermuda Triangle? If you want to say Atlantis is somewhere, say it's in the depths of the ocean where we've never explored. Not an extremely well-trafficked and safe area in the Atlantic Ocean that's waters are literally right next to one of the world's biggest militaries in history. Do y'all really think that the US has never sailed or flown successfully through an area that's water is literally right next to them? Especially if it's been traversable for hundreds of years. Like, are we serious? That's ridiculous. Anyway, that's the end of the video. The Bermuda Triangle is a dumb conspiracy. Have a good day.